Hello everybody, this is another Hot Wheels collector video. Today I'm going to be showcasing and reacting to the 2024 Hot Wheels Mainline D case. This is a great case full of amazing stuff. We've got new castings here, we've got new recolors, tons of new stuff to the case. I can't believe how good this mix is. So stay tuned to the very end of this video because you do not want to miss any of the great stuff featuring here. But before we do get into this reaction then, I must shout out Ministry of Diecast for the footage found in this video. Without him it would not be possible, so make sure to check out his original video. It will be linked in the pinned comment of this video as well as in the description. His original video also does have some additional footage, so make sure to check out that video if you haven't already. But without further ado, let's get straight into this reaction then. Alright, jumping straight into this reaction then, we first of all have the Vespa 90 SS Super Sprint from 1966. Now this is brand new for this case, it's also a brand new casting for this case. It's been painted in glossy red and does receive side and front tampo. I'm personally not interested in that thing though, as I personally don't collect motorbikes. Next up we do have the Batman and Robin Batmobile. This is returning from the previous case, so nothing new here. Next up we do have the DeLorean Alpha 5. Now this is brand new for this case. It's painted in glossy white, does receive front and rear tampo work, and is rolling on the 10-spoke wheels which have been painted in grey. Now this is not a brand new casting, but it is a brand new casting for the mainline. It first debuted on the Mattel Creations website in this kind of DeLorean set. It was really overpriced though, and a lot of people were not happy at that price, and I totally agree. It was expensive. But next up we do have the 07 Chevy Tahoe. That is returning from the previous case, so nothing new there. But this is brand new for this case, the Glory Chaser. Painted in this neon orange colour, does receive side and top tampo work, and is rolling on the 10-spoke wheels which have been painted in chrome. I'm a big fan of that release, of that casting. Even though it is a fantasy, I think it still looks really solid. Next up we do have the 23 Ram 1500. This is a brand new casting and is also brand new for this case. It has been painted in glossy red, does receive side and front tampo work, and is rolling on the off-road beadlock wheels which have been painted in chrome. That is a really nice new casting, and I can't wait to add that to my collection. Next up we do have the McLaren Solus GT. This recolor is returning from the previous case. It was a brand new casting for 2023 though, and first debuted in the 2023 Q case in white. Next up we do have the RR Roadster. This is a brand new car for this case, but it is a fantasy car, so I'm not personally interested. It does receive its side and top tampo, has been painted in this metallic purple colour, and is rolling on the 5-spoke wheels which have been painted in grey. Next up we do have the GMC Hummer EV. Now this is returning for the previous case, so nothing new here. It's a nice release of this casting, but yeah, nothing new. We've already talked about this in the previous reaction video. Next up we do have the 55 Chevy Big Air Bel Air. Once again this is returning for the previous case, so nothing new here, but I am a big fan of this release of this casting. One of the best throughout this casting's history in my opinion. Really awesome car, can't wait to have that in my collection as well. And this Surf and School Bus is also returning from the previous case and is also a fantasy car. I personally am not interested, and we've already talked about this in the previous reaction video. But next up, onto the next car, we do have the 67 Chevy C10. Now this car does receive side and top tampo work. It's been painted in this matte cream colour, and it is rolling on the 5-spoke wheels which have been moulded in red plastic, and these wheels have been painted in black. I personally am not a big fan of those wheels, but that release of the car in general is okay. It's not the best thing I've seen in the world, but it isn't bad, I wouldn't say. Next up we do have the Alfa Romeo GT V6 3 litre. This car does receive side and front tampo work. It's been painted in this glossy grey colour and is rolling on the Aerodisc wheels which have been painted in chrome. That was a brand new casting for 2023, and I would say that's a really solid release of that car. Looks great. Next up we do have the Mad Mike Drift Attack, returning from the previous case, so nothing new there. Next up we do have the Moustache. Now this is a brand new fantasy casting for 2023, but it is returning from the previous case, so nothing new here. It does have a secret feature where it has a little plastic mustache which you can remove from the car, and you can pretend like you've got a mustache, I suppose. It's definitely aimed at kids, that feature. Next up we do have the 92 Honda Civic EG. Brand new for this case, does receive front and side tampo work. It's rolling on the lace wheels which have been painted in chrome, and this car has been painted in glossy red. Definitely going to be a popular one amongst resellers and also collectors. Next up, we do have the Nissan Skyline GTR R33. Once again, this one will also be super popular. It's been painted in glossy white, does receive rear and side tamper work, and is rolling on the 10-spoke wheels, which have been painted in grey, and that car does have the Godzilla livery. Next up, we do have the Pagani Zonda R. Now, this car does receive side and top tamper work. It was a brand new casting for 2022, and this is 3 years running that this casting has been released. It's rolling on the lace wheels, which have been painted in chrome gold, and that car has been painted in what appears to be metallic dark reds. Next up, we do have the Mod Rod. Now, this is not a very nice car in my opinion. It is a fantasy car as well, and is returning from the previous case, so overall I'm just not excited about that thing. And I would definitely say that that car is aimed at a younger demographic. But next up, we do have the West Coast Flyer. This is also a fantasy car aimed at a younger demographic, and I personally am not that interested in that thing either. It is also returning from the previous case, so nothing new there. Next up, we do have the 15 Mazda MX-5 Miata, painted in mint green. This car is returning from the previous case, so nothing new here, but it's still a really nice release of that casting. Next up, we do have the Group C Fantasy. This is a fantasy car returning from the previous case, but honestly, I'm a big fan of this release. Something about it I just like. I think it just looks really realistic and awesome looking. I don't collect fantasy cars, but that car definitely makes me want to start, if I'm entirely honest. Next up, we do have the 87 Audi Quattro. Now, this car does receive side and front tamper work. It's been painted in glossy red and is rolling on the 10-spoke wheels, which have been painted in chrome. This is a brand new casting and is also a brand new car for that case. And it is a fantastic casting in my opinion. I'm really thrilled with how good that casting looks. It's very accurate to the real life car, and that is something that I'm pleased to see. This 1978 Dodge Lille Express truck is not new for this case. It's returning from the previous one. And this Baja Bison T5 is also returning from the previous case and is also a fantasy car, so nothing new here and nothing really that cool either. Definitely aimed at a younger demographic. Next up, we do have the Back to the Future Time Machine DeLorean. This is returning from the previous case, so nothing new here, but I am a big fan of this release. It looks very detailed and has a lot of tamper work. Next up, we do have the Street Wiener. A really interesting release, of course. It's a wiener because it's got a hot dog on it. Again, this is aimed at a younger demographic and is a fantasy car, but it is brand new for this case. Next up, we have the Custom 68 Camaro. This was a brand new casting for 2023, and this is the second release of this car. However, it is returning from the previous case, so nothing new here. Next up, we do have the Wheelie Chair. This is a fantasy car, also returning from the previous case, and I honestly think that this casting is pretty awful. I'm definitely not a fan of this release, and the casting in general, as I've said, is just not for me. It's definitely aimed at younger people. Next up, we have the Hot Wheels 4-Track. This is a really nice casting when it's done right like this. It is rolling on the Aerodisc wheels, which have been painted in grey. This car has been painted in glossy red, and this car does receive side and top tamper work. What a great release of that casting. It looks superb in my opinion. Definitely looks like an F1 car. Next up, we have this really awful looking casting, the Boom car, definitely aimed at younger people, definitely not interested in that thing, but yeah, you might be and that's totally okay. Next up, we do have the 57 Jeep FC. This is returning from the previous case, so nothing new here. Next up, we have the GT Scorcher. Now, this is a fantasy car. It is brand new for this case, does receive side and top tamper work. It's been painted in glossy black and is rolling on mismatched wheels. The front wheels are done in pink and the rear wheels have been done in black and white. Definitely not a bad release of that casting. Looks pretty cool to me. Next up, we do have the Ice Charger. Nice to see this casting returning. This car does receive side and top tamper work. It's been painted in this matte grey colour and is rolling on the Y design wheels, which have been painted in chrome. Nice release of that car. It is accurate to the real life Fast and Furious movies. You would expect that since this car does feature in the Hot Wheels Screen Time miniseries. Next up, we do have the Nice Dragon. This is a pretty bad casting. It's from the previous case. It is a fantasy car, and honestly, I am not interested at all in that thing. But this is brand new for this case. The 73 Honda Civic Custom looks fantastic in this racing livery. Does receive side and top tamper work. It's been painted in glossy yellow, and it is rolling on the 5-spoke wheels, which have been painted in black. Next up, we do have the Land Rover Series 2. Now, this was a brand new casting for 2023, as with that Honda Civic we've just seen. This release does receive side and top tamper work. It's been painted in matte light grey, and it is rolling on the Baja off-road wheels, which have been painted in black on that release. Next up, we do have the T-Rex Transporter. This is returning from the previous case. It's a fantasy car, and honestly, I'm not interested in that thing at all. Next up, we do have the 67 Camaro. This thing does receive side and top tamper work. It's been painted in blue, and it is rolling on the 5-spoke muscle wheels, which have been painted in chrome blue, and they have been molded in white plastic. Quite an interesting car. I'm not a big fan of the wheels on this thing, but everything else looks pretty nice to me. Next up, we do have the Piranha Terror. This is a fantasy car aimed at a younger demographic, as you can probably tell, so I am personally not interested in that thing at all. Next up, we do have the Roger Dodger. I've always been a fan of this casting, but I think this release is exceptional. It does receive side and top tamper work, it's been painted in what appears to be matte grey, and is rolling on the 5-spoke wheels, which have been painted in grey as well. Really nice release of that casting. Next up, we do have the Mazda RX-7. This car does receive top and side tamper work, it's been painted in glossy white, and is rolling on the 5-spoke wheels, which have been painted in this bronze chrome colour. Next up, we do have the 73 Jeep J10. Now, this was a brand new casting for 2023, and this is the second release of this casting. It does receive side and top tamper work, it's rolling on the beadlock off-road wheels, which have been painted in chrome orange, and that car does have what appears to be a glossy blue colour on it. Next up, we do have the BMW 507 done in yellow, returning from the previous case. It was the Super Treasure Hunt for the last case. Really awesome release of that casting. It was a brand new casting for 2023. Next up, we do have the Grass Chomper. This is a fantasy car, brand new for this case. But honestly, I'm not a big fan of this thing because it is clearly aimed at a younger demographic. It's one of those crazy fantasy cars which are totally unrealistic. But there you go. You might be interested in that thing, but I personally am not. Next up, we do have the Custom 53 Chevy. This is the treasure hunt for this case. A fantastic treasure hunt. Does receive side and top tamper work. It's being painted in this matte purple colour and is rolling on the 5-spoke wheels, which have been painted in black with white walls on them. They look fantastic. I'm a big fan of this treasure hunt. The 2024 treasure hunts are already looking better than the 2023 ones, because in 2023 we didn't get many licensed treasure hunts. Most of them were fantasy cars, unfortunately, and that was a real shame. Next up, we have the Hot Wheeler. This is a fantasy car returning from the previous case, so this does not interest me. This is a bit more interesting though, the 89 Mercedes-Benz 560 SEC AMG. This is the third release of this casting. It was a brand new casting for 2023, and this version has been painted in glossy red. It does receive front and rear tamper work, and this car is rolling on some black wheels with a chrome lip. A really nice release of that casting, very solid indeed. And the final car for this mix is the 2010 Camaro SS. This car has been painted in glossy lime green. It does receive side and top tamper work and is rolling on the muscle car 5-spoke wheels, which have been painted in black on this car. But there you go, that is it for this case. What a fantastic mix of cars. There's going to be something here for everyone. There's 2 new castings and pretty much all the licensed recolours look fantastic. It's really refreshing to have such a nice case after the pretty poor C case we've just seen. So yeah, really awesome mix of cars. I'm really impressed with this. I hope that the Hot Wheels team continue this throughout 2024. But that does lead me onto my rankings. So what is going to be my third, second and first place car? So in third place is going to be the Honda Civic AG. What a fantastic release of that casting. I'm really pleased with how that turns out. The wheel choice on that thing is fantastic, the colour choice is great, and the tamper work is fantastic. Honestly, I have no complaints at all with that release. Genuinely really impressed with that. Next up, second place is going to be the brand new Audi Quattro casting. They've done a fantastic job on that casting. Looks very accurate to the real life car, and that's really all we could ask for. I know a few people who are going to complain that the Hot Wheels team decided to do front and side tamper work instead of front and rear tamper work, but it still looks really nice, and we've just got to accept what we've been given because it's a really nice casting and it's a really nice release. I'm pleased that they released this car in that iconic red colour. I mean, what other colour could they have released it in that would have looked as good? And finally, for first place, it is going to be the Nissan Skyline R33 in the Godzilla livery for me. I personally prefer this Godzilla livery on the R33, and I honestly have no complaints at all about this release. Let's just hope that this and the Civic are easier to find in stores than the Civic and Skyline which featured in the 2023 D case, because those were really hard to find. and I honestly never found them in the wild, unfortunately. Hopefully someday I will find them in the future, maybe they'll just turn up, but who knows. But do you agree with my ranking? Let me know in the comment section down below. What would you give third place to? What would you give second place to? And what would you give first place to? And also let me know what your least favourite car in this mix is. Are there any cars in this mix where you're just like, damn, I absolutely hate that thing? Please do let me know all that in the comments section down below. I love hearing your thoughts. But anyways, that does lead me onto my score out of 10 for this mix. So what am I going to give this case out of 10? It is going to be receiving a totally deserved 10 out of 10. What a fantastic mix of cars, I have no complaints, and as I've already said, there's literally something here for everyone. This is definitely a step up from the previous C case. But anyways, that is it for this video, so if you guys did enjoy, make sure to like. If you're new to the channel, subscribe. Remember, you can also press that notification bell so you do not miss new uploads. Remember, you can also share this video with any friends, family, or any groups who may be interested. But remember, don't feel pressure to if you don't feel like you have anybody who may be interested. You watching this video all the way to the end means so much to me, and I really do thank you for making it all the way up until this point. But anyways, that is it for this video, so I hope you guys did enjoy, and I really do hope to see you guys in the next one. Bye bye everyone.